Wonderful. Hello, everybody. There we go. Hello, everybody. We're with Nora today, Nora Lester Murad. But let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing today. We're so happy to have you for the next 20 minutes. We are the Story Sunbirds, a kidlit collective of authors and illustrators whose mission is to cultivate a dynamic and inclusive community rooted in justice, anti-racism, and anti-colonialism. So 1 year today, the children of Gaza held a press conference outside of the El Shifa hospital to ask for an end to the war. And today we're taking part in a Children's Day of Action. It's a multi-organizational, multi-day effort that to commemorate that day. And our action is this day-long read aloud. So we have some amazing authors and illustrators for you today who will present every 20 minutes from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can find the lineup in the chat. And we are also raising money for the Middle East Children's Alliance. Your donation strengthens the steadfastness of Palestinian families by providing essential services that include shelter, food, clean water, medical and psychological aid, and children's programming. So be on the lookout for the link in the chat throughout the day as well. And when you email us a receipt of your donation, you will be entered into a signed giveaway from some of our presenting authors and illustrators. So again, in the chat, you'll see all that information in the chat. So right now we welcome Nora Murad Lester. Lester Murad, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, as you can see. And she's a dear friend, and we're excited to hear from you today, Nora. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna hand it over.
Thank you so much. Randa, is my sound okay?
It's great.
Amazing. Really an honor to be with Story Sunbirds, such an amazing organization and group of loving creators of books for children, and especially to be here with you, Randa, because of your amazing writing, including but not limited to Tagging Freedom, one of the great books for young adults to really see how they can feel their feelings about world events and then do something about it. So thanks so much for that. I have about 15 minutes, and I thought that I would tell you just a bit about Ida in the Middle. This is my young adult novel, which won a couple of awards, which was a great honor. And it's about a Palestinian American girl. I thought I'd tell you the story briefly and then read from not the middle, I mean, not the beginning, but read from page 171, where it's a bit more exciting and hopefully representative of the book as a whole. Ida is a middle daughter. She's Ida in the Middle, a middle daughter of 3 daughters. She's also in middle school on her way towards high school, and she's in the middle of a really mess, a big mess in her life, which involves the Middle East. Basically, like many other Palestinian American kids, and especially today, Ida is ridiculed and bullied at school and just really wants to disappear. She ends up moving to a new school thinking that she can be under the radar and just kind of invisible till she graduates from high school. But then she ends up with a project. She's supposed to present about her life's passion in front of the whole school, which I think for many kids would be completely mortifying. And for Ida, who's trying to be invisible, it is quite scary. Plus, she doesn't know what her life's passion is. So one day while she's procrastinating, she eats from a jar of green olives that she found under the sink and remembers had been sent from her mother's family in Jerusalem. And those olives transport her to the life she would have had in Palestine if her parents had never come to the United States in the first place. Then the book alternates between part of the story and her life in the United States as she tries to find her voice, and in Palestine, where she learns about her family and her history and her heritage in a way that she never had been able to while living only in the United States. And by the end of the book, Ida has been caught in a siege on her village near Jerusalem. And although she's scared, has had to step up to take care not only of herself, but of a little boy who's caught during that siege by the Israelis as they try to demolish a home. And Ida then has to figure out how to raise her voice against the injustices in both of her homelands, the United States and in Palestine. So I'm not sure how long this will take, but I'll try to finish at a stopping point. This chapter is chapter 15. It's called Running. And it takes place in the Palestinian village, a fictional village I've named Busala. The Friday morning quiet of the village intruded on Ida's sleep. She was vaguely aware of her sister's rhythmic breathing. It lulled her back into a half-sleep, and a strange dream took over. In the dream, Ida saw herself again at Danya's ballet performance, but it wasn't at the community college. It was at the White House in Washington, D.C. Aunt Maleka was sitting behind Ida, even though the seat next to her was empty. The music started, and there were sounds of jumping and sliding, but the stage was too dark to see anything. When the performance was over, the audience clapped until their palms were bruised and bleeding. Then the president came out to graduate Danya, who was animated like a cartoon. He told Danya to make a wish, and he promised it would come true. But Danya didn't want the wish. She put it into a brown lunch bag and gave it to Ida so she could make a wish. All the people in the theater stopped talking to listen to what Ida's wish would be. Mr. Wynne, Carolina's brother Mario, and the girls from the school in Busla were all there. And so was the Israeli lady who'd asked for the sugar packets at the pastry shop. Ida opened her mouth to speak, but it got locked like that, wide open. The people around her acted as if that were normal, and they gathered up their things to go home. Ida woke up abruptly. A pigeon had landed on the sill outside the window, making a kind of purring sound. Ida wondered what the bird was trying to tell her. Farther away, she could hear the tweeting of the little brown birds that fluttered everywhere in search of crumbs. There were also the caw-caw sound of the larger birds that seemed to be passing messages among themselves, just like the girls in school. Ida wondered if any of the birds' messages were for her, if only she could understand. Later than usual, Ida and her sisters got out of bed and started the routine of cleaning the house, but their hearts weren't in it. At the meeting the night before, the village seemed to splinter into 1,000 pieces. Basil and his friends had decided to collect stones on the rooftops of the buildings around the village so they could throw them at the Israelis who came into the village. This led to an argument between Basil and Danya, who, like Mama, thought more people would get killed. Murin, without any support from anyone, had organized with Uri to invite some Europeans to stay with her in her mother's house and the homes of her cousins. Baba had contacted a lawyer to start a court case to stop the demolitions, or at least delay them. But the lawyer told him it would take years and cost thousands of Jordanian dinars, which he didn't have. Doing her part, Aunt Maleka had gotten 10 old video cameras from her news agency and was showing the older kids how to use them to document things like attacks by soldiers or other bad things that might happen. Ida had no idea what was right. She just felt sick about it all. After the cleaning was done, Ida's parents and grandparents went together to an Aza, a memorial service for Sido's older brother who had died that morning after suffering from lung cancer for 2 years. The women and the men gathered separately to mourn, but children weren't expected to go. Danya and Selwa were happy to have some unexpected free time. They wanted to go down to the small plot of land that Sido kept in the backyard. Selwa enjoyed climbing the olive trees. Danya did too, but she was too old to climb trees without the neighbors gossiping about her. They liked to make themselves a picnic out of whatever fruits or vegetables were ripe on Cedo's plants and trees. Go without me, Ida said. I don't feel well. But when the door slammed closed and she was alone, Ida felt awash with sadness. She had never felt so lost. Why did I come to Busala? There's nothing I can do here, Ida complained to herself. Suddenly, the sound of whistling in the distance caught her attention. Whistling was the warning sound that villagers used to announce the arrival of Israeli forces. Within seconds, whistling seemed to erupt all around. Ida ran to the balcony to see what was going on. From her vantage point above the soccer field, she could see hundreds of boys gathering. They were looking around, listening to the whistles and whistling themselves. On the roof of the school, she saw men with guns appear, too many to count. She wanted to shout to warn the boys about the men with the guns on the roof of the school, or to press pause on the remote so the action would stop long enough for her to think. But real life moves too fast. Before she even caught her breath, Ida heard a loud bang, then two more in quick succession. Tear gas rose from the field. The boys scattered. They leapt behind boulders and sprinted into the spaces between houses to get away. It seemed only seconds until the field was empty, though the sounds of shouting in Arabic and Hebrew continued to fill the air. Ida was paralyzed with fear. Her eyes scanned the scene and she noticed a small blue and green lump on the field on the farthest side from her. She strained to see what it was and her heart sank. It was a boy. A small boy had been on the field when the shooting started, and there he lay unmoving, and no one seemed to notice but her. Without thinking, Ida bolted down the stairs, wearing only her cloth house slippers, without even pausing to take the key to the building. She flew across the now empty street into the field. Ida looked up to the rooftops as she ran, and she saw Israeli forces still pointing their guns toward the field, while their comrades chased Shabab down the village alleyways. Instinctively, Ida raised her arm toward the shooters, perhaps to shield herself from the bullets she knew might come, or perhaps to signal for them to hold their fire. It felt like an hour until she had crossed the field and reached the child. Her eyes stung and her throat burned with a bad taste from the tear gas. Ida wasn't strong, but she had no choice but to lift the boy over her shoulders and carry him off the field between two huge boulders. It was Faddis, Basil's little brother, the one who ate cheese puffs on the way to school. He was soaking wet, but Ida was relieved to see it wasn't blood. Too scared to run, he had fallen flat on the ground in place and had wet his pants. And I think that's where I'll stop. Although you might imagine the whole rest of the book is Ida and Faddis trying to get back across the village to their homes while the village is still under siege by Israeli soldiers. Thanks for listening to me read. I hope you get Ida if you're interested in reading this book, but more importantly, to read the amazing, wonderful, brilliant, and beautiful books by Palestinian authors whose voices right now are being silenced in a horrific and sometimes violent way, not only in Palestine, but here in the United States where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. That was great. If you have questions for Nora, please put it in the Q&A, and we have a couple minutes before we have to end. Nora, as we wait for maybe see if anyone has some questions, can you tell us maybe why you decided to write this book, like a little bit of background on how you came up with your character or how you decided to write Ida in the Middle?
Well, so many things made me write the book. It's really based so much on our lives in Palestine. I'm Jewish. I'm married to a Palestinian Muslim. We raised our three daughters in the West Bank under Israeli military occupation. And first of all, I wanted a book that they would enjoy. I also wanted a book that they could read and see themselves in. But as I started talking to more and more kids and teachers in the United States, I also realized it was a book that non-Palestinian kids need to read to understand more about how their age mates in Palestine live, and for teachers to have as a tool to introduce Palestine to students in the United States or any other English-speaking country. So there were many reasons to write it, many reasons to publish it, and it's very, very closely based on our lives.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you so much for being here and for your amazing book and for all that you do and for being part of this. We love you. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. I'll leave you to your next amazing author, but invite everyone to donate because we're raising money for Gaza today. And I
Yes.
can say from friends of mine who called me from Gaza yesterday, which is difficult because there's very, very little internet and very weak internet. And they told me that the youngest child in the family asked her mama, please don't go to the store and don't even go to the bathroom because I want to be next to you when we die. And that's how important this is, not only to collect money to alleviate suffering, but to make those calls to the policymakers to stop the slaughter in the first place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. And the link for the fundraiser is in our chat. And it is to the Middle East Children's Alliance. So yes, thank you, Nora. We'll see you soon. So as we wait for our next panelist, let's
Yes,
see.
thank you. I'm going to stop recording.